Welcome, welcome, welcome to Hands That Shape. We have an awesome guest with us today. We have Dr. Judith Adams, and she is a dedicated occupational therapist with 25 years of experience in the field. A proud three-time graduate of Howard University's occupational therapy program, she also holds a certificate in international studies from Howard University Graduate School. Dr. Adams has taught occupational therapy at the collegiate level, both nationally and internationally, bringing a global perspective to her work. Her research focuses on underserved populations and marginalized communities with a commitment to advancing occupational justice. As a part of her philanthropic efforts, Dr. Adams has founded the Jeneatha Learning Center in northern Ghana, an initiative that supports the occupational engagement of women and children by addressing the social determinants of health. Dr. Adams has served clients across the lifespan, from pediatrics to geriatrics, in settings including hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, outpatient clinics, schools, and home health. She is also a certified aging in place specialist, helping individuals live safely and independently in their homes. Welcome, Dr. Adams.
Well, thank you for quite an interesting introduction.
It
Thank
was
you.
a mouthful, but I want the people to know exactly who you are. So I felt that it was important to include all of those things.
Understand.
Yes. So without further ado, this is Dr. Adams. Everyone, I know Dr. Adams because she was my CI for my second rotation, and I am so thankful that she was. I know that there are a lot of CIs who kind of abuse their power, but I really appreciate you, Dr. Adams, for always seeing me as a professional and empowering me to show up in an authentic way. And because of the way that I saw you advocate for kids at the IEP table, it really kind of shaped how I show up for kids at the IEP table today. So I'm so thankful to you. So thank you, Dr. Adams. And tip for anyone listening, if you're into peds and you're thinking you want to do school system, my recommendation is to do that for your second rotation because it's definitely a much slower pace than all the other settings. So just a little pro tip there. But welcome, Dr. Adams.
So, thank you very much, Allegra, for having me. It is a pleasure and an honor to be on this platform.
Oh.
So, might I share my experience with Allegra? Allegra came to me for about how many weeks? Probably 4 weeks at the most.
Well, it was a little bit longer because it was my oh, but it was date. Yeah, you're right.
Initially, and I
Yeah.
was gently encouraging Allegra to go to another zip code or another part of the city so she could get more experiences and, have a diverse understanding of the populations that we deal with, etc. But Allegra
Mm-hmm.
did not go.
Mm-mm.
And so I took a lot of interest in Allegra because I thought she was hungry. She was hungry to be a servant of the community. And I do think that she is a promising service leader. And we need more people like Allegra in the field of occupational therapy. So I
Thank
am surprised that you were so impressed by me. I guess when you do what you know is right, it comes through and people are able to see that.
Yes.
I hope equally that the fight that I fought for children go beyond what I see into their adulthood. And I'm
Yeah.
happy that people like you were able to come in and see that and understand the areas that we need to engage in to continue on the trajectory of serving persons in the underserved communities.
Yeah, for sure. Like I did get a chance to service another school after I left you, and I was like, I don't feel like these people really need my help. I want to go back to the underserved population. So definitely that's where my heart is. So starting off, I wanted to ask you, how did you find OT as a career, and can you share with people where you're from, where you grew up, and then maybe how did that all tie together for you?
Well, that's a great question because it goes hand in hand. So I came to the US in my teens. I can't remember exactly how long. So I was looking, as an immigrant. So we always look at starting over, and I thought to myself, what should I do? How could I use my talent to engage in a profession where it doesn't feel like a job? I didn't know about occupational therapy, but I was speaking with my cousin and she told me about this profession. She was a home health aide and she was complaining about the weight of people when she have to lift them
Mm,
and where you teach people to move by themselves. And I thought that was fascinating. So I asked her what that profession was, and she said occupational therapy. And she directed me to someone who could have shared more information, and I never looked back. And by the way, the question you asked where I'm from. So I'm from a country in South America. It's called Guyana. It is the only English speaking country in South America, close relationship with the Caribbean islands. So my culture is Caribbean, but I'm actually from South America.
cool, cool. Thank you for sharing. I
Yes,
knew this about you, but thank you for sharing because there is a difference culturally. Yeah, you are Caribbean. So I
yes,
think that that was a clear distinction that many people don't know. So thanks for sharing that. That's interesting. I love how you put that.
yes.
Okay, so my next question is what were your level two rotations? Because in my opinion, that's really where you become an OT and it's kind of where you get your background from. So what were your two level rotations? Where were they and what settings?
So I'm trying to remember which one was one or two. So in my days, we focused heavily, graduating from occupational therapy school, we focused heavily on physical disabilities and psychiatric settings. Yes, so my two rotations, and there were 3 months each, were for the psychiatric rotation that was at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. Not quite sure if you're familiar with St. Elizabeth.
I am.
And then the second rotation was at George Washington Hospital. And that, of course, you know where George Washington is. So both
Yes.
rotations were here in the district.
Okay. All right. So did you like those rotations? Did you feel like it prepared you for the real world, or were you still like, oh my goodness, I'm a new OT after you graduated?
Yes, I would say that it was a great transition into the real world. After going to school for such a long time, you always think about that day when you're going to step out.
Mm-hmm.
Psych Psychiatric rotation at St. Elizabeth was very eye-opening. I think that many things that I learned then that I carry into my post-OT years. One is having a sense of what's going on around you, because when you are on locked units and you're working with people who are in active psychosis, always have to be aware who is at the left of you, right of you, and at the back of you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a sense I think we all have, but unless you are put in a situation to utilize it, then you often don't. I also came to understand persons with psychiatric diagnosis are as people first and then the psychiatric diagnosis. So I think it gave me a good view of who we are as human beings and understanding that these people are just going through a diagnosis that's not as prominent as a physical diagnosis, and people who need attention, just like you and
Yeah.
I may need attention in other areas.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I did have a mental health rotation, but it was my level one. And I went to Baltimore and I was able to talk to people who were in the halfway house. And so I assessed one gentleman, and he was just saying how, before he went to jail, he there were buses and everything was printed out on paper. And so he went to jail for quite some time. And when he came out, he was in his 60s. He went in before he was even 21. He came out in his 60s. And he's like, it's so overwhelming now. They have cell phones and computers are everywhere. And he was like, I'm just trying to figure out how to get to my doctor's appointment. And he was saying how it was like 10 times easier to get medical care in jail because you didn't have to think about it. Someone just came to your cell and said, walk this way, and you saw the doctor or whomever, and then that was it. So he was really struggling with being on the outside because of the the mental process that you have to go through in order to get to point A to point B. And it was just too much for him, honestly. So he committed a crime and he went back. So that was really eye opening for me. So I do love the mental health settings. They are very intriguing, like you said.
And not to forget, that's where occupational therapy was born. It's
Yes, the
like
birthplace.
when we the industrial age, when people with mental disabilities were institutionalized. We didn't know why or how, but we know when we gave people activities that there was some amount of recovery occurring,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And then when you fast forward into the 21st century, we are undertaking research, which is actually showing why what we do has such an effect on a person. So we have come quite a long way, but it's really important that we remember our roots. And I think I
Yes.
heard a doctor said everything that occurs in the world really begins in your head, in your
Mm-hmm.
so if we go back to the part of our body and understand how important it is for humans occurring both on an individual and social level, how important it is for us to take seriously mental health, I think we would be a better society.
Yeah, for sure. Percent. I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Okay, so my next question is, how did you know school-based OT was where you belong? Because you've been in the school system for a while now.
I think I would rephrase that statement and say occupational therapy is where I belong.
Okay.
That school-based occupational therapy is where I belong. And I'll tell you a story. When I was coming out into the OT world from school, I just knew I wanted to work with children. But at
Okay.
that particular time, I went into geriatrics because that's where the need was more than the schools. And I worked in geriatrics for a long time. And I personally I could not envision that I would have worked that many years in geriatrics. And so coming
Okay.
back to pediatrics, I realized that there's a common thread with as occupational therapists helping people. And I wouldn't necessarily say that I have a preference now after working so many years with the geriatric community. I think understanding the human potential and understanding where people are and the map
Mhm.
of independence that you could facilitate is what intrigues me more. So it could
Yeah.
occur in the pediatric population, it could occur in the adult or the geriatric population. And it's just as intriguing.
It sounds like you're saying you're invested in the human experience, and that
Yes.
transcends all settings.
Yes.
Yes, and that definitely does track for me as well. People ask me, "Oh, what's your favorite population?" And I can't say one or the other because the truth is I'm a people's person.
Yeah.
So I love all of the settings, right? Because that's where the people are. So
Yes.
I do identify with that as well. Now, in your bio, when I read it out loud, it said that you founded a um a school in Ghana. Can you please share?
Yes. I think I stumbled upon the school or the school stumbled upon me.
Okay.
I was thinking about occupational therapy and I thought about this phrase. Occupational therapy is that discipline that takes you where you need to be, if you allow it.
Mm,
Because we work across that continuum from pediatric to geriatric. So you must fit somewhere in there. And
yeah,
then we work across so many settings. And so I think if you come into the discipline, being an open book and understanding the foundation of your work, I think you will gravitate to different places. For
true.
me, at this stage in my life, I went to Ghana first on a maternal project in a place called Kumasi.
Mhm.
And then I returned. And that was the second time I returned was based on my research. So I wanted to go to a place where there was predominant amounts of patients that were performed in early Africa. And I was always told it was the north. So when I returned to Ghana, I went to the north and I was doing research. And so I would go and meet with women under the shea tree, the shea butter that we use.
Mhm.
Well, the trees are huge and they're very umbrella-like in formation. So women would go sit under those trees after they come from the farm. So
Okay.
they would gather. And so I would speak with these women. Yes. And I went to one community, and the woman who was in charge, she's like a chief. She's called the Queen Mother.
Okay.
she leaned over to me and she said, could you help me with these women? And I thought to myself, how could I help them? And then I remember seeing the little children running around, and I do have the background of a teacher. So I was like, you know what I can do? I can have someone gather these little children under the shade tree and, teach them the alphabet.
Yeah.
And that is also because what I learned is that these women, who are women farmers, would take their children out from the regular school to take care of the little babies while they had to go to the
Mm.
and so there would be a regression in their older children's education, and there is a predominance amount of early child labor, early child marriages, etc., etc. So I thought, if I could create this, right,
Mm-hmm.
children would be able to engage in their occupational performance in their school. Parents would be able to engage in their occupational performance in the field without worrying about their children. And then the children are going to be in an environment that's safe. And so
Wow.
it grew from that idea into school. So very shortly after that time, the school was born. And so we have 3 people being able to satisfy their occupational performance with just that one school.
Wow. If your school is taking donations, definitely let me know and let our listeners know how they can help. If you don't know right now, we can put a link in the bio or your website because that's definitely a good cause. And it sounds like it's going directly to the people. So
Yes.
kudos to you for coming up. Well, for the leader coming to you and asking, right? And then for you to actually think and deliver on that. That is so amazing, Judith. I think that to your point, it's helping everyone fulfill their occupation. Everyone is able to get what they need to get in order to grow and continue to mature and go to the next step. And I just think that's so beautiful. That is amazing. I did you started school, but I didn't get like the full background. So that's
Yes. Well, remember what I said. Occupational therapy is a discipline that will take you where you need to be
mm,
once you keep your eyes open. And I must applaud you for creating such a platform because it's so very much needed. We need to reach out and help each other. We need to reach out and let people know what we're doing in the community.
yes.
You hardly ever hear about occupational therapy. Like one time in I think there was a show, well, there was a series ER. They mentioned physical therapy. You will actually see people performing occupational therapy
Mm,
in pictures or videos, and sometimes they refer to that as physical therapy.
yep. Yep.
Awareness is so paramount. We have so much to offer people, but if we don't get the word out there, then
Mm.
people would not know. So thank you again, Allegra, for being a shining star in this area.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, definitely was a part of my vision. I think because a lot of times OT is so underrepresented. And then, of course, OTs that are minorities are very underrepresented. So I
Yeah.
really wanted to create this podcast to shine a light on the profession and all the many people that play a part in the profession. But I do remember, I think it was like a month before I took my boards. I said if it doesn't have to do with the medical field, I'm not looking at TV, I'm not listening to it, I'm not doing anything. So in that month span, it was like all medical field or OT related. Now, granted, it wasn't a lot of OT things. Like, of course, it was my NBC OT book, study book, and guide, and flashcards. But when it came to like watching TV, if I wanted to watch TV, I would have to watch ER. And I think one time they did mention OT, but out of all the hours of ER that I watched, it was like only one little small little blurb. So, yeah, it's definitely a need for this to get the word out and to see how many shapes and forms OT can, take on. Because to your point, if you let it lead you, you can do almost anything.
Yes.
The mental health rotation I was telling you about, an OT said, "Hey, I really think I should be here at this halfway house." And they were like, "Oh, no, OTs don't work here." But she was like, "Let me volunteer my time for 3 months. And at the end of that, then you can see if I've added value to the community and the people. If not, I'll go my way. But if I have, like, consider hiring me. And she did that. And guess what? They hired her. So OT can look like a lot of different things in a lot of different settings. You just have to be creative and like think outside the box for sure. So
Sorry.
go ahead. You like what?
And I like what you just said because oftentimes you will go into a setting and people will try to define occupational therapy for you. Those who have experience with occupational therapy before, because as I said, some people are still not aware. I think advocacy, speaking of explaining, educating, is the key to making the population understand, the community understand who we are and what we do.
Yes, for sure. Now, I think we touched on this already, but I just want to circle back. What did you get your doctorates in, and what was your cornerstone or your thesis for the program?
So I got my doctorate in occupational therapy, of course. And actually, I did three of my degrees in occupational therapy and at Howard University.
Yes,
So I'm a proud bison, you know.
yes,
So I live, breathe, and see Howard University. Might I say Howard University has been a pinnacle in the United States of America for graduating very successful occupational therapists.
hmm
I think being in the district, we don't get an understanding of how rare we are. When I was going to school, I know the percentage of Black occupational therapists was about 2%. When I read of occupational therapy website, I think worldwide we may be about three. Minorities are just around that 3% mark.
okay,
And when you look at our population, you know, we know that being from the population we are and understanding some of the experiences that we know that we are better able to serve those populations because we live in it. We see it.
yeah,
These are
yeah,
our uncles and our aunts, you know. There are certain things that may not be articulated, but
yeah,
because we are in that society, we are better able to address those concerns. And so when I got my doctorate, I was really focusing, number one, on women, or I should say, I was focusing number one on persons in the underserved communities, and number two on women, because women been marginalized to a great extent, I should say worldwide,
mhm,
especially in those populations that don't have a good economic financial infrastructure.
mm,
So there's so many things that occur with women in underserved communities that your brain may not be able to conceive unless you witness those experiences.
I see.
I think what is most touching is that these women are eager to learn and they're eager to work. And there's so many things that we take for granted. And we are so well prepared as occupational therapists to make a much bigger impact in society than we exercise. And so it is my dream. It has been a dream of mine to bring 5 persons into the profession.
Okay,
So far, I've been able to expose about 12 persons.
okay, okay.
I think I've met my mark, but I realize that that's still a little drop in the bucket.
Mhm.
I'm still very interested in sharing what the occupational therapy experience is to encourage more persons of color to
To
enter.
come into the fold. Interesting.
Yes.
That's cool. That's a good goal. I think I didn't think about that. Like, what's the legacy, right? What are you leaving behind? What did you give to the profession once you're done? And if
Yes.
you could say, hey, I've turned on X amount of OTs to the profession that made it, I think that's amazing.
Well, I can say that I brought 11, is it 11? 11 students into the profession, but those were from the University of Guyana. They're
Okay.
not necessarily occupational therapy under the American standards. They are rehab therapists with a specialization in occupational therapy. But they got it. They have the drift.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're on board. And granted that they could get more experience, I know, well, they're doing a phenomenal job right now as it is.
Mhm.
But OT is ever evolving and ever growing. They're just doing an outstanding job.
Well, tell me more about that. So you're saying in Guyana there is a program that's for rehab specialists?
Yes. So at the University of Ghana, they have a program. Well, they've had a program where therapists would go for about 3 years, and then in the very last year, they branch out into either occupational therapy or physical therapy specialization.
Hmm.
So I was able to work there for 2 years
Oh wow.
and focus on occupational therapy, of which I know you assisted me. So thanks again.
You're
For
welcome.
their clinical rotations.
Yes.
What did you, well, let me ask you, what did you think about them when you were, let me see, when you were observing them?
Think immediately I thought, wow, look at them. They're doing more with less. Like, of course, they don't have as many resources as we do here in the States, but to see them and the care and the time that they took with the patients, I think that is amazing. I think it's sad that they don't have an OT program at University of Guyana. They don't have a program.
Yeah, that was just 1 year. I mean, of course, it was a lot of work and preparation, and that's what I'm coming back to. Exercising your skills in underserved and marginalized communities. Look at what we were able to do.
Yeah. So are you saying that there are at the University of Guyana, but maybe that not that university, but elsewhere in that country, there are OT master programs? Is that what you're saying?
No, they don't. That's it.
Wow.
And since I've taught one, two of them were supposed to go ahead and join one of the OTD programs in the US, but
Yeah.
that program is no longer. And then one was applying to go to England to do her master's in occupational therapy. And I
Yeah.
know given more opportunities, they would go. So just
Of
think about,
course.
that's just me. So just think about if we have more people joining the cause, what a difference we will make.
Yeah. So are you saying because you were able to go over there and teach, it allowed them to have the specialization in OT? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So in a whole, not you focus, but why don't they? I'm just thinking, why don't they have master's OT programs over there? Is it, I don't know
I
why.
think it's the same reason why people don't understand why we do what we do in the United States.
Mm,
It's visibility, understanding, lack of education. As I said before, as occupational therapists, knew what we knew the results of what we were gaining by the work we did, but we didn't really have that science behind us to make what we did as valid.
mm,
Not the validity, sorry. We didn't have the science to support what we did. Now we have a science. We do have occupational science.
yes,
So we traditionally fell under the holistic model, or we were classified holistic.
I
So
get it.
so in order to show what we did, we needed to move a little more into the medical model, which we are on that trajectory.
Okay.
And that is why research is so important.
For sure. Yeah,
Because it shows data, whether
yeah,
qualitative or quantitative. It shows this is what we do and this is our outcome. It's
yes.
objective. It's objective. While if we say it, it's subjective. And when we come to research, we're looking at a lot of objectivity.
Correct. Yeah, because it's like this is what we do, this is why we do it, and this is the outcome. But yeah, maybe we can band together and advocate for the University of Guyana to have a master's OT program. I think that would be amazing because it sounds like people there, and from what I've seen, are hungry and do want to work and want to acquire more. They do want to work for it. They don't want to be given it. They want to earn it. So we should maybe try to get together and try to collaborate on that because that would be super positive and impactful for generations to come. And that would definitely leave a full legacy, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that information because I did not even know why. I was like, wait a minute, why isn't there a master's program? But I do remember, if I'm gonna be frank, I do remember being in my master's program and trying to find research articles that just were, put on by OTs, and it was not a lot, right? I do think that, fast forward now, there are more research articles done by OTs, but it's super, super, super imperative and important. So if you're out there, you're getting your doctorates in OT, you're doing the good work, please
Yes.
publish as much as you can because to Dr. Adams' point, like it's oh so necessary because if not, we fall into the holistic bucket, which is true. We do fall into that bucket, but we do have a science background as well, but it just doesn't get as much shine. So the more articles we get, the more we fall into the medical model and the more we can advocate more for our profession. Okay, so that was really good information, but it brings me into my last question, which is what was your most memorable client or patient and why?
Oh, so this patient would always stand out. I was working at a subacute hospital rehab, and I remember going, you know how you get your referrals and you go, you look in the chart and then you equip yourself, you go into. I remember when I went to no, I read the patient information, but I remember when I was going into the room, the nurse said she's a trach, meaning that she has a tracheostomy.
Correct.
And one thing I must say that I love about us as occupational therapists is that we do them take all the information, but I think there is something in us that once we work with a patient, we go as far as that patient allows us to go. So it may go beyond the prognosis. It may go beyond so many different limits. And I remember when I went into the room, patient was laying on the bed. She was unable to respond to sound, etc. And I listened to who that woman was before she ended up in the subacute rehab hospital. I spoke with her husband. Good understanding of her profile. And this was a very active woman. She was a pianist.
Ooh,
She went for walks, no, runs every morning. And she came back from a run, complained that she had a headache, and her husband took her to the doctor. They gave her an aspirin and sent her home. And she suffered a massive stroke. And so when I thought about her prior level of function as being a very active person, I thought I'm going to give everything I had to her recovery. And so I worked with her. The very first thing I did was to have a goal where she would respond to a simple command for 1 to 2 seconds, open her eyes. She accomplished that.
okay.
Of course, she was bedbound, right? She was contained to the bed. So we moved from 1 to 2 seconds, and then I found out that she often played duets. She was a pianist. And so I had the family bring in a piano, a little toy piano. And as her fingers touched that piano, you saw life coming back into her.
Wow.
That's not the end. So we worked with this woman. We got her to sitting. And her friend, so that I can't remember if that was October, November, but she and her friend had a recital that they were going to play for in December around Christmas.
Okay. Okay.
Her friend came one day and we got her in a wheelchair, and I was pushing her out to the front as the friend was speaking to her. And there in the hall was this big grand piano. Okay. So I remember it was her right leg. So physical therapy was working with her, and they thought she had maximized the amount of potential that she had at that particular time.
Huh?
So it clicked to me that I should let she and her friend play the piano.
Yeah.
So you know the level of neurological processing that those neural pathways would begin to light up, right? So the only way she could have gotten to sit on the piano, to get on the stool, sorry, not on the piano stool, was for her to move that right leg. Do you know that when I transferred her from the wheelchair during that time, I saw her kick her foot out. The foot that was
Wow.
not moving.
Wow.
That is a perfect match between a client's rehabilitation and the correct setting.
Yes.
Because in occupational therapy, we look for the just right fit.
Correct.
That was perfect. And she sat there and her fingers worked the keyboard,
Huh.
not correctly at first, but you got to see how her brain was programming and reprogramming,
Yes.
because that was the piece that they were practicing to play in December.
Wow.
So she was able to leave the hospital walking with just a little bit
Really?
of assistance, with a little bit of assistance,
That's amazing.
because physical therapy went back in on the case. They
After
went back.
after they saw after you reported the movement of the leg.
I saw it. I
Yeah.
actually saw it. So we cannot take for granted the work that we do and the fact that we go beyond a person's skill into a person's function and understanding what it is that they did before, and try to create an environment where we stimulate their brains
Yes.
through doing to get them back to that level or the highest level of independence. And with children, or in the case with children, understanding developmentally where they should be and facilitating that environment.
Yeah.
So I remember she walked out of the hospital, the subacute hospital, with her husband and her daughter.
Wow.
I wouldn't say she came all the way back. No, she did not. But to see her from where she was to where she ended, I was like, I can't ask for better.
Yes. Yes. That is an amazing story, Dr. Adams. Thank
Yes,
you so much for sharing that. But yes, it definitely does show the power of occupations. I
yes,
mean, simply put, the power of occupations. You took the time to ask the spouse the questions, and she did have a occupation that she loved to do, playing music, and you capitalized on the environment. There was a piano there. There was internal motivation to get back to that, and you were able to mesh those all together to help maximize her outcomes, her rehab outcomes, and that's amazing. Stuff like that like warms my heart. I love it. I love it.
You know, the saying, I guess it can be cliche enough that, doctors add years to people's life, but we add life to person's years.
Yes.
That is so true. And I think you asked the question in terms of what professional life.
Yeah.
I am focusing a lot on health and wellness. Occupational therapy, we don't only provide therapy to a person. We look at our clientele is a person, a population, or a person groups or populations. And we're trained to look so social at the social impacts upon health. And we often don't practice in there because a lot of our funding comes from Medicare or Medicaid. Tend to
Mhm.
fit into that model, the medical model. But there's so many other models that we can practice in and we can serve persons. And so for me, having gone to Africa and being an immigrant and coming from different societies, different communities, I think there's a lot more we can do as occupational therapists in disseminating. I think we could do more with our skills to create healthier communities.
Yeah, yeah, because we can definitely focus on the person, but definitely we can focus on the community as well. I agree.
Yes, and I think you did mention something about work with that person you mentioned who asked for a chance to work within that setting when no one thought that occupational therapy
Hmm.
was appropriate. We're getting to the stage that and we're getting into a new phase of life where we need to push those boundaries a little more, and exercise as much as we can. Because, we have that document, the occupational therapy, the OTPF, which is I shouldn't say our Bible, but it's our guide. I don't think we utilize our framework. It's called a practice framework. I don't think we utilize our practice framework as much as we should.
Mm,
I think if we return to that practice framework, then we'll understand our potential and what we could do to transform people's lives.
yeah, I do remember that being almost like the Bible, quote unquote, when I was in grad school. You're right. And I have pulled it out a couple of times since being I'm an OT. And I know on rotation with you, you asked me to pull it out a couple of times, but I think you're right. I think I could be pulling it out a little bit more and going back to the roots. I agree.
Yes, and that's a framework that you have to keep up with because I think we are due to have an upgrade this year,
Okay. Yeah, it does change from year
2025.
to year.
So when I started school, it was the uniform terminology, and it has gone through OTPF 2, 3. We're currently at 4, and we're about to go into 5. Occupational therapist, especially when you're out there working. If anyone questions you, just fill out the framework and show them you're working within your scope. So I think it's important for us to understand that document so when people challenge us, we can pull it out and say,
Mm,
no, because people try to define. This is the issue we have. We're so limited, people don't know much about us, and we're challenged at times when we're even practicing within that very small
mm,
area that we're practicing. So I would say overall, understanding your landscape, understanding your scope of practice.
mhm.
It's very important as much as advocacy and awareness is important. There's so much work left for us to do that we have
Yes.
begun to cover. So we need more people on board.
Agreed. I 100% agree. I think that to your point, when you're out there and you've graduated, someone is going to test you. Someone's going to say, but why are you doing X, Y, and Z? And so you do need to have an answer. You do need to have that framework kind of imprinted on your brain and be able to articulate why you're doing what you're doing. Unfortunately, physical therapists don't go through that. Doctors don't go through that, but we do. And that's okay. It's an opportunity to educate and to teach. So that can be a beautiful thing when you meet that moment and you have your information ready to go. So that's a pro tip for all the newbies out there or about to be newbies. Make sure you have the reason why, you understand what you're doing, and you're able to articulate it to others. So, if there's anything else you would like to share, I would like to open up the floor to that. Maybe you can mention your learning center, the name of your learning center again. What's its name?
Okay. So the Learning Center, it's named after my sister who passed. It's the Saint, sorry, I took the Saint off. It's the Jeneatha Learning Center. It is located in a place called Savio. The place is not on the map. You'll find
Wow.
I'm not quite sure. My understanding is that there are other places that are also not on the map. I I don't know if they don't think that they're significant. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how a place gets put on a map or not put on a map.
Wow.
But it's located in a place called Paga. Paga is known for their crocodiles. That's the big thing. You can actually go and you can pet the crocodiles.
Wow.
Yes, that's what they're known for. Very close to Burkina Faso. So it's north of Ghana, but very south of Burkina Faso.
Okay.
Faso. And you would be hearing about Burkina Faso a lot in the news right now. And so we have currently we have 75 children. The 75 students, we have 4 teachers. I must say, it's amazing their growth. English is taught as a language, one of the languages for them to learn because, they speak Kasim.
Mm,
But it is my wish that they learn English so that they could compete with globally because the universal language. They also have a French teacher, and I'm just surprised every day to hear the stories. But serving people in the underserved communities, I can give you a few stories. So I would ask the Queen Mother, the principal, I'd say, so tell me, what happened lately. So I'll give
Mhm.
you two stories. One story, when we first began, like in the first 6 months, a father told her that he's amazed that his daughter could count from 1 to 10 and write from 1 to 5.
Wow.
Those are things we take for granted.
Yes.
I remember one time we were talking about cups, you know, for the children to drink because it gets really, really hot.
Mm.
Okay, so I was like, why don't you have the children bring a cup from home? And she laughed at me. Could you imagine why she laughed at me?
No, why did she laugh?
Because in some of the homes, they only have one cup.
Wow.
So there's a cultural aspect that is very important for you to understand, putting away of some of your Western thoughts. So I find it exciting because I get the chance to learn about people in ways that you don't even think about. And as you learn about those ways, then you understand the human potential and how much you have to give back. But what's very rewarding, it's the level of gratitude that you're met with. And that fills your heart. Another instance, what was another instance? So I introduced the Christmas party.
Mhm.
I never had a Christmas party before.
Oh, wow.
So, I gave, the girls well, everyone got a little gift, but the community was so amazed at the party that people came out. And
Wow.
I think what's amazing too is the community is so proud of the school. They would just come and they would just look at the children's, like, say their graces, they say prayers still to go to.
Yeah.
They're just fascinated by these children.
Wow.
It becomes like a spectacle.
Yes, 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 yes. It's amazing that in their small town or their village or their city that they have these young scholars, which they didn't have before. And I
Yeah.
can imagine if cups are, not easy to come by, an actual schoolhouse or a school place center is like mind blowing. So, wow, kudos to you, Judith. Again, you have to give me a link to drop in the description or something because I know people listening to this will want to give back.
Okay, thank you. My latest. So what I found out, and this is why I said OT is going to take you to where you need to go. Mother's Day. I introduced the concept of Mother's Day. Okay. So there was actually supposed to be a women's football team match. So the queen mother, she introduced it to the women, and it was just so amazing to see them practice playing football. They actually didn't get to play the football, but you had the women from the area coming, and they dressed in these beautiful colors. They dressed in these beautiful colors. And so
Uh-huh.
you had I think about six different women group, or six or seven, and they all came and they danced. However, whatever their community
Custom is
dance,
to do.
customary
Yeah.
dance was.
Yeah.
They played games and it was so much fun. And I thought to myself, well, when I introduced the concept of Mother's Day, I wasn't thinking about it the way they used it, but that's also fascinating because it was what they did that made them happy, that made that day focus on them.
That was how they showed that
Yes. So
yeah, for the Mother's Day.
that is also fascinating. So I'm learning much about their culture and they're learning much about some of the Western culture. Don't, one of the things I'm very careful about is any idea I have, I share with the Queen Mother and have her input because I don't want it to be a case where I'm coming and just bringing my ideas to them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Being culturally sensitive.
So it's a good marriage, I would say. It's a great marriage, and I can see these students going on to accomplishing quite a lot.
Wow.
So you
You're
see,
you're like a Oprah. You're like a Oprah, Dr. Adams. You
so
got your own center and everything.
what I wish is that I could develop a model and with that model, share it with persons so that they could also contribute in kind. I can't tell you that where I am today was very easy. Uh, it was not, but it's been very rewarding because we had things like people coming, bringing their children to the school
Mhm.
and leaving them there. and telling the principal that that's where they want their children to be. And I had to explain to her that while that might seem complimentary, it doesn't have any order. If you don't have order, you're not going to get respect. If you don't have
Wow.
respect, you're not going to be able to create the environment for learning that's conducive for learning. So we had to work through a lot of those concerns and issues. But now the community is able to see and understand. And you see the entire community lifting up through education, come from helping people to engage in their occupations.
That's right. That's right.
So we really have the tool to change the world as occupational therapists. But, you know, we have to understand it first. Because I can't tell you that where I am today, I was 5, 10 years ago. Because
Mm,
25 years of experience.
that's right. Speaking. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I can only imagine. This is my seventh year, so I don't know where I'm going to be 7 years from now, what I'll be doing. But it definitely will probably increase and magnify in the profession. That's my hope, at least. Well, thank
And what about you? Where are you now compared to where you were like year 1 or 2?
I think year one and two, I was still kind of shaking in my boots a little bit. A lot of self doubt, rather. I know that being in the school system, I really had to get my wits about me kind of quick. And the district in which we work for is very high in litigation. So I think I was a little scared about litigation and going to court and hearings and things like that. But now, since then, I'm very confident and I feel like I'm really able to make a difference in children's lives, even if it's like out of the box. And I'm really moving into home modifications for seniors. I really, really, really love that. I feel like it's the quickest instant gratification you can get, right? Because you don't necessarily do the full therapy session. You come in, you interview them, you look at their house, you say, hey, you could use this, this, and that. And then contractors come and do the work. You come back, teach the person how to use it, and they are able to access their home in a way in which they weren't before. So much safer for sure. And it's gratifying for all parties, for me to see how they're able to access their home without having to worry about falls, and for them the same thing. But I usually work through a grant, and so it's free. So these seniors are like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Like, I can live in my house a little bit longer, a little bit more safer. So they're very appreciative and they don't have to pay for it. I'm also kind of moving into the assistive technology piece of OT. That's also a new kind of up and coming branching area. So I haven't quite gotten all the way into that, but that's definitely an area which I want to move in. And then, of course, Hands That Shape, this podcast, I hope to keep that going, to keep stories going. For me personally, stories are so moving and they're so important, because you're able to glean a little bit of this and a little bit of that from other people's stories. And when you see other people and they share their story, you tend to question, like, well, if they did this, then I can do this. Or, hey, maybe I can think outside the box and create a job for myself, based on what this OT said, that she said one of her CIs did. They say, hey, let me volunteer and I can make a difference. If not, then okay. But if so, give me a job, like things like that. So just continuing to share stories of OT is very important to me. So hopefully I'll still be doing this podcast. And that's really it for me. I also am very holistic in nature, so outside of OT. So that's another reason why me and OT kind of have a good thing going together. I like to do my sound bowls and yoga and just being outside and meditation and being present. So all of those things is what I'm doing now.
I know you were interested in lactation. Are you
Yes.
still in that course?
So I did take the needed classes. However, I needed to find a mentor who was going to let me work alongside them or observe me. And I kind of ran up against a rut because COVID happened. And then I didn't like the idea of paying thousands of dollars to get a sponsor to observe me. And I also knew that I wanted to continue to do school based kind of full time and do lactation kind of around the perimeters. And I didn't know, it didn't seem like it was worth it, thousands some dollars, honestly. But I haven't written it off. I think I have gained a lot of information from that. I was able to actually nurse when I got pregnant later on with ease. I think partly because I went through those the classes. And then I also help a lot of mothers, and I know having kids with lactation support as well, even though not officially, right? But I'm not completely writing it off, but that definitely is something that's on my horizon as well.
It's such a pleasure to see how you've blossomed.
Thank you.
I feel like
Well,
a
that
good
is because of
mama.
you. You help put the miracle grow on me. So I appreciate you for the miracle grow.
I feel like a great mama.
You're a queen mother, OT queen mother.
Guys, if you don't know, let me tell you, every Mother's Day and every birthday, the first text I get is from Allegra.
Me. That's right. That's right. Definitely want to acknowledge you and celebrate you, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, well, I must say it was a pleasure. And keep up the good work. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your information and your story, Dr. Adams. The legacy that you're building and leaving behind is unmatched, and hopefully, we can get together and start advocating more for better programming. But thank you so much for listening, everyone out there. Enjoy your day and continue to shape the world, everyone. Bye bye.
Care. Bye bye.